Hello, warriors. We will continue our study of the sentence types by looking at two different things. The first thing we're going to do is to watch a video that reminds you of the three of the four sentence types that you have to know for testing purposes. And then we're going to look at a passage together to see how these sentence types function within a selected passage and how knowing that information about these sentence types helps us not only with writing, but also being able to analyze the structure of a passage to see if there are particular mistakes. And that's one thing that you're definitely going to see in 2 weeks with your SLO. Definitely something that you're going to see later on, closer to the end of the year with your SC ready. One of the things that you're going to see on this sheet, you have a section that says EdPuzzle score. So what's going to happen is that we are going to watch the EdPuzzle video, of course. You are going to be given some questions, and you have to answer them in two different places. One place, of course, is on the EdPuzzle, because if you don't answer those questions there, it's not going to let you continue. So that's one place that you're going to have to click in the answers. However, to get your actual score, you're going to have to put your answers over here as well. You're going to see that with the passage, you're going to have 10 particular questions. Then you're going to have to self-grade them. So you're going to go and get the answer sheet, and you're going to see which ones that are correct out of which ones that you missed. Then you're going to put your score within this box. So let's say, for example, that you only missed 2, which means you're going to get 8 out of 10 correct. So you'll write the number 8 over the number 10 to indicate, hey, I've received 8 questions correct out of the 10 possible, which is going to be an 80% for the EdPuzzle portion of our station experience. So to get this started, we're going to look at a Schmoop video that is going to cover 3 of the 4 sentence types. The one sentence type that won't be mentioned is the compound complex, which we will talk about at the end of the video.
Sentence types, a la Schmoop. It would be pretty boring if sentences only came in a single flavor.
Aw, man.
Vanilla's fine, but who wants a world without chocolate? Or even green tea ice cream?
Yeah.
Hey, some people like it. There are 3 basic types of sentences. First, the simple sentence, aka independent clause. You can also think of it as a complete thought. So long as it's got a subject and a verb, you're all set. The other 2 types use different helper words to connect clauses.
Did somebody say clause?
Compound sentences have 2 independent clauses connected with a helper word, such as and, nor, or so. And finally, complex sentences really live up to their name. They have an independent clause plus 1 or more dependent clauses, which can't stand alone as complete thoughts. So they're connected via a helper word, such as although, when, or which. Now let's translate all this into English. Here's the simplest of simple sentences. A simple sentence is solid. It stands on its own.
Oh, this? No.
That's why it's also known as an independent clause. Like our friend over here, it stands on 2 legs, a subject, and a verb. Got that? But a simple sentence doesn't have to be quite so simple.
Hey, you, get back here.
It can have a compound subject, that is, multiple subjects, like Mike and Bobby are caught by the police. Or a compound verb. Mike goes home and loses his art supplies. In a compound sentence, you've got 1 sentence but 2 independent clauses joined by a fanboys coordinator.
Alright, that means.
And by fanboys, we mean for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. These fanboys are just dying to get between 2 independent clauses,
Back me up.
usually preceded by a comma. For example, Bobby failed miserably to impress Lisa, yet he kept trying to impress Megan too.
Aw, heck no.
And then there's the complex sentences. That is, an independent clause joined to 1 or more dependent clauses.
Alright, that's it. Handcuffs? Seriously?
They're joined by either a subordinator, such as because, after, although, or when, or a relative pronoun, like that, who, or which. For example, Mike took down his shrine to Susie, which took over a month to make. And one with two dependent clauses. Here we go. Although Susie thought Mike was sort of cute, she preferred someone who didn't literally worship her. So there are three sentence types: simple, compound, and complex. A simple sentence is an independent clause with at least one subject and verb. A compound sentence is two independent clauses joined together by fanboys. And a complex sentence is one independent clause plus one or more dependent clauses joined by a subordinate or relative pronoun.
Again? Really?
Just remember that there's always got to be at least one independent clause in each sentence because somebody's got to stay independent here.
All right, as you're looking over the big fat review, you're going to see that it talks about the three basic sentence types. With simple, it says you just need a subject and verb and make sure it can stand alone. With compound, you have two independent clauses connected by a helper word. We know those helper words as coordinating conjunctions or fanboys. And then to have a complex sentence, you have an independent clause plus one or more dependent clauses. The way that you mix these last two, is that you're going to find that there are at least two independent clauses that would make up the compound, part of the compound complex sentence. And then you're going to have at least one dependent clause within that mix. So that's how you get your compound complex sentence. Now, this becomes important whenever you are reading passages that require you to know the rules of the different sentence types to figure out how it functions within a sentence. We're going to look at how it affects grammar, basically, within these sentence passages. And then also they often throw in questions as far as, if you think about like a homophone, words that sound the same but are spelled differently, you have one of those within this passage. But it's pretty much just looking at just those major grammar mistakes. And so whenever you have different passages that you're given on a test, you approach them in different ways depending on what you are supposed to do. Sometimes they are text-based passages where you're going to be answering specific questions, maybe for discussion, maybe for analysis, if you think about anything from vocabulary and how it shapes the meaning based on the context, to things like attention to form or tone, imagery, rhetorical devices, just things that require you to read the passage multiple times by analyzing or looking at specific things. And so whenever you have one of these passages, what you're really looking for is how these sentences kind of come together to form the paragraphs. So it's not really as much as what it says, but just how it says it, how it's structured. And so you're looking for those particular mistakes if they exist. So what you need to do is just to read through the passage in its entirety. What we want to do is to take these sentences in isolation, just to go ahead and jump to the questions, just to go ahead and get it over with. And you're not telling the truth if you haven't said you've either done it or you wanted to do it as you go through these passages, because nobody really wants to read 2 pages of an essay just to find grammatical mistakes. Well, that's kind of a lie, because I know lots of your English teachers enjoy doing that. But as for most people, that's not something that they do for pleasure. However, that is what makes you a strong writer, if you're able to see that once you break down these sentences. So the best way to do it is just to read through them so you can see how it flows, because a lot of the times that is going to help us to determine how these parts are functioning together. So we're going to read this out loud once together, and then we're going to go back and stop by the questions so we can really focus in on those particular sentences or phrases, clauses that have been selected for us to analyze. So let's start off with Jackie Robinson playing for the Majors. Robinson's debut at first base with the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15, 1947, in which he batted 0 for 3, was one of the most closely watched events in baseball history and a profound moment in the history of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. Although he played his entire rookie year at first base, Robinson spent most of his career as a second baseman. Since he was so athletic, Jackie also played many games at third base and in the outfield. During that first season, Robinson suffered considerable abuse. He generally conducted himself very well, though his composure cracked from time to time. For example, he punched an umpire in the face after the ump used a racial slur. Many Dodgers were highly resistant and hostile to his presence. A group of Dodger players insinuated they would rather strike than play alongside a black man such as Robinson, but the mutiny was ended when Dodger management informed the players that they were welcome to find employment elsewhere. He did have the support of Kentucky-born shortstop Pee Wee Reese, who proved to be his closest comrade on the team. During one game, Cincinnati players were screaming at Jackie, and they started to get on Reese as well. Pee Wee went over to Jackie and put his arm around him and smiled. Jackie smiled back. The pair became a very effective defensive combination as a result. Throughout the season, Robinson experienced considerable harassment from both players and fans. Pitchers threw at his head. Base runners tried to cut him with their cleats. He was verbally assaulted by both his own teammates and opposing teams. The Philadelphia Phillies were particularly abusive. In their April 22nd game against the Dodgers, they jeered at and insulted him ceaselessly. Rickey would later recall that this did more than anything to unite the Dodgers. It solidified and united 30 men. In Robinson's rookie season, he earned the major league minimum salary of $5,000, which was standard for many rookies at the time. He played in 151 games, hit .297, and was the league leader in stolen bases with 29. Robinson was awarded the Rookie of the Year award in 1947 and the Most Valuable Player award for the National League in 1949. He not only contributed to Brooklyn pennants in both years, but his determination and hustle kept the Dodgers in pennant races in 1950 and 1951, when they might otherwise have been eliminated much sooner. In 1955, though clearly in the decline of his career, Robinson would play a significant role in leading the Dodgers to their first and only World Series championship in Brooklyn, in a 7-game victory over the New York Yankees. Robinson's major league career was fairly short. He did not enter the majors until he was 28, and he was often injured as he aged. In his prime, he was greatly respected, both for his playing skills and as a person. After the 1956 season, Robinson was sold by the Dodgers to the New York Giants. Rather than report to the Giants, however, Robinson chose to retire at age 37. What you should do after you read through it once is take the time now to go back to the particular questions to see what's being asked. So let's take a look at the first particular question. We're going to focus on this passage right here. Next, we're going to take a look at this passage. Number 3. Number 4. It would be a good idea to look at the entire sentence so that way you can read. With number 5, even though the question is in the middle of the sentence, you should actually start reading from here, focusing on what's underlined, but read the entire sentence. Number 6, number 7, take a look at the word that is being used and how it should be classified. Again, with number 8, it would be good to look at the entire sentence. While you're focusing on what's underlined, still read the entire sentence. Again, with number 9, and number 10. Once you're finished, you are going to self-grade. Please mark the ones that are incorrect and then subtract that from 10. Then you will go to your answer sheet and you'll put how many correct over 10.